All right. Good morning out there, you cool cats and kittens and comic book aficionados and people just strolling through YouTube going, the weather's horrible outside. Is there anything good to watch? And I want to say, this is mediocre. It might be entertaining. I don't know. So sorry for the late start this morning. We are coming at you on the new year. It's my first stream of the new year. What is this? January 7th, 2024. That is wild, guys. 2024. We are in the future. Isn't that wild? We're here. No flying cars yet. Not a rainy Sunday show because it is snowing outside. It is 11:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good morning, Easy Comic Reader. Great to see you, brother. And the wife is under the weather, so I had a few things to do and take care of this morning before we came down here. And today's show is going to be a little different because, uh, yeah, I bought a few new little things here and there, some antique shops. But with the current state of comics, mainstream comics mostly, and I've actually done some reading, so I'm trying to get at. I bought some stuff at antique shops here and there, a few little things here and there, but I've done a lot of reading. And so I've got a few little stacks here where I'm just going to show you what I've been reading, what I've been catching up on, because I have a ton to catch up on. I'm not joking. Up until about, and it's because of YouTube. No joke. It's because of YouTube. But basically, ever since I was a kid. For you guys that don't know, I've been reading comics since 1977. When I was four, the stepdad and the uncle's collections, everything they had around the house is what I read. 1979, I bought my first comic myself with my own money, and be it a troll book order, a trip to a bookstore, a comic book shop, whatever. Over the years, usually as soon as I got home, I would read what I had. What I had. And I remember people who used to enjoy coming to my place back in my single days and stuff because they thought it was kind of wild because wherever they looked or wherever they sat, there would be a stack of comics in arm's length. Right, it got pointed out to me quite a bit. So so the last couple of years I've gotten really behind on my reading. I got almost a full run, missing issue 6 of Micronauts to get through, for example, and there's a box over there of new comics from the last 2 years from my Gmart orders. Believe it or not, I haven't got through all of those. So I've sat down and I've read a few things. What happens is that there's thousands of books out there to read. I've said this before, right? You can go to an old Cosmos, if you remember that show. And Was it Carl Sagan host of that? Let me get some more coffee. But anyway, I remember there's this scene when I was a kid that I was like, I really took it in, right? He was standing in a library and he was like, there's thousands of books to read, and you only got a certain amount of time in your lifetime to read. So the trick is to find the good stuff to read, and that's a variety of stuff and everything, right? So what I'm finding myself doing is I'm reading a lot of this newer stuff. My mind drifts and wanders to the stuff that I've read for years, and I go back there. And strangely enough, I've been finding that stuff in trade and things like that, to where I have the original comics, but now I don't have to dig through the boxes. It's just going up on the shelf. I'm starting to realize that there's stuff I just want to go back and read, despite having a lot of new stuff. I don't think this is very uncommon with readers because I even have like pulps and little novels and short story collections and things like that the same way. So one of the things that came in as a Christmas present from my wife is I have the bootleg over there that I bought at Heroes Con probably about 20 some years ago. I want to say it was probably 2002, but who knows, right? Well, I finally got an actual legal one, Thunder the Barbarian. This is the show that made me a Jack Kirby fan. Before that, Jack Kirby scared the ever loving hell out of me. When you go back to Fantastic Four number 67, I think that's what it was, the stepdad was a Kirby nut in the house. So there was OMAC and Losers and Fantastic Four and X-Men and all that stuff, right? My first issue of X-Men I ever read was X-Men number 3, the first appearance of the Blob. And then you had Fantastic Four number 67, which is the first appearance of him, Adam Warlock. And if you look at the cover, it's a cocoon. It's a white cover, that grotesque cocoon that he's in, and scattered characters around. And it freaked me out so bad that I colored it in with crayons, or just try to pretty it up. And then, seriously, I would have stacks of comics in my kid, and at 5 years old, it was OMAC number 1. there's a woman that looks like she's in concrete. Let's put it that way. No Mac is throwing her, and I would have to flip that over so I could go to sleep. Things like that. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching this Thunder cartoon. Right? I didn't have the words, but I like post-apocalyptic stuff. Yeah, started with Planet of the Apes. I know exactly where it came from. Right? Then we had Mad Max going on and things like that. And then this cartoon came out, and it just blew me away because I was a Saturday morning cartoon kid with my Flintstone vitamins and my Fruity Pebbles. That was my time, belly crawling down the halls to make sure I don't wake anybody up as I went by their bedroom doors, so I could watch my Johnny Quest in my Battle of the Planets before the and Dr. Snuggles before the actual mainstream cartoons came on of the time and the era, right? I grew up with Super Friends, no doubt about it. But it was this one where, an asteroid hurls itself between the Earth and the moon, causing catalytic destruction and everything. And we jump a couple thousand years in the future, and we have a barbarian with a sun sword, a sorceress named Ariel, and Ukla the Mock. And this was Steve Gerber and Jack Kirby, and I didn't realize that. But in my little 7-year-old mind, I started putting together because there's a village of dwarves in here, and their costumes were big time Jack Kirby designs and stuff, and I was recognizing it. And I would sit there for like 2 or 3 weeks trying to watch the credits, trying to look for the names, and I found Jack Kirby. So this was the cartoon that very influential when I was a kid. This was also a time when movies like um, Over the Edge, The Warriors, Times Square, and a few things were having also a big influence on my young little mind and stuff, right? So anyway, very happy to get this. It's a Ruby Spears. Well, it's under Hanna-Barbera. Excuse me. I thought it was Ruby Spears. But anyway, it's a 4 disc set, and I know these cartoons have been on Boomerang, and I'm sure a lot of people have watched them back in the day, and I'm sure there's clips and probably episodes hidden without YouTube and stuff. This will always have a big place in my heart. And I would love to see somebody do that adult tone, that realistic tone, like they did with Space Ghost a couple years ago, probably like 15, who knows, where they told the origin of Space Ghost and it ended up being a big space western, but it was like adult themed. I would love to see somebody do something with Thundar. I have the story in my head about how he got the tooth that he wears as a necklace around him. The battle, he's like a gladiator, he and Ukla were slaves and forced to be in a gladiator pit at the time, and he breaks free. It's like in the credits. It's all there. The thing will write itself. The story is there. So that's what we have there. Yes, Easy Comic Reader. What do we have here? You are all over this. Awesome. I had a similar thought. Will I ever finish reading everything I accumulated over the years, yet I continue to buy more? Yeah. And love Thundar. Everybody should love Thundar. Nothing like a barbarian need to love. I'm starting to realize that there was also the Conan and the Barbarian movie came on in the middle of its relatively short run. Okay, so some of the stuff that I've been reading, um, I always try to find something new, have hope out there, right? Because I'm really ready to kind of turn my back on modern day comics. And yet, when I say that, there are people that I know personally and people who watch this and stuff like that will automatically just get angry. Like there's no conversation to it. You know what I mean? They're like, there's good comics out there. And I'm like, where are they at? You know what I mean? I'm like, we're grown adults. There's no use in arguing about it, but like, where's it at? And rarely do I ever get shown those great comics that are out there today. Right. And that's, like I said, that's why I end up going back and reading things. Right. So I'm going to show you a few things here. I'm just looking at the stacks here to see where to go with this and stuff, right? So I found something that was decent, but it's more like there was fun. And I'm telling you, there's an energy missing out of a lot of newer comics. I don't know if it's with the pacing or what's going on. And then I can also show you where my bias comes from, right? So one of the series that's coming on is a lot of people don't seem to know. I got to put this to the side. I'm going to talk about this. But I'm going to put it to there's an Earth 2, if you will, going old pre-crisis there. But anyway, Jeff Johns there's a little umbrella of books that started with Jeff Johns doing another Justice Society of America book, which I think is supposed to run 12 issues. Who knows, right? And he always brings in Stargirl. So he had a mini-series going on the same time that we had the New Justice Society book going on. And it's taken forever for this Justice Society book to come out. And under that umbrella, we have a Sandman series. I'll show you these covers a little bit better. A 6-issue mini-series going on. Tim Sheridan is writing this Alan Scott Green Lantern book. That's also 6 issues. And I'm telling you, it's garbage, and it's not because of all the isms out there. It's really bad. I read issue 1, I read issue 3, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? So I can't really have an opinion on some of these books because of what I've read in the past that is better. To me, you either take your own take on it, um, and you move forward, and you have there's certain things that need to be in a superhero book, because it is a superhero genre, but you can still expand, and you'll see what I'm saying. So one of the things I will recommend to read because it was fun. This isn't deep, you know what I mean. This is just somebody's finally just written a comic book, right? And all the ideology stuff that is out there, stuff like that, can be looked over. This is more aesthetic with some of the stuff that's out there. But it doesn't really play into the book, but it's very cool, right? Jeff Johns is around my age, and it really blows my mind. Like, and I really saw it with Blackest Night when he wrote that. But he brings up things in comics that I remember sitting in 4th grade in the back of the school bus when I knew 1 or 2 other people that collected comics, and this is the stuff we would talk about. And Blackest Night, it was like, what would red lanterns be and orange lanterns and things like that. We got to see that spectrum, right? So there's a few things here with the sidekicks. So basically, and see, and I'm trying not to take shots at Marvel stuff with Dan Slott's Marvel Boy, excuse me, Spider Boy at Marvel and stuff, right? Because this came first. There's no doubt in my mind, right? But this is the Stargirl trade for the miniseries that came out, and basically, I don't have no idea how well this is showing up, because it's Todd Knock. I think that's how you say his name, Nauck. I say Knock. Um, yeah, Todd Knock doing the art from Young Justice and stuff, right? So basically, Stargirl, we pick up. She is still in high school. She is still arguing with her. And if you know Jeff Johns, this is based on his sister who died in a plane crash. He's immortalized her. And over the years, I have the first appearance of Stargirl because it tied into James Robinson's Starman. It was co-written there, and I actually enjoyed the TV show. I've looked around between the first, I don't know, 12 issues of the series that came out in 99, 2000, plus a trade I got at Ollie's and all this stuff, my Justice Society collection, and things like that. I have a fair amount of Stargirl, so I'm not going to say that I'm a fan of hers, but like, way to go, man. This character is going to be like, I think, 25 years this year. So anyway, the main plot of this, and there's a few things I like, is that we tap into this whole idea that there is an island out there that may or may not be magic. It may or may not be scientifically set outside of time, but I'm not going to say anything. But apparently in World War II, a lot more sidekicks were prevalent with uh, our World War II Justice Society heroes and stuff, right? And for some reason, they all disappeared, and many of them were forgotten. And when they go to Myrtle Beach, which blew my mind, part of this book takes place in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a famous and popular and overrated at this time, I think, vacation spot that families have had a lot of traditions of going there for generations and stuff. Vanna White from Wheel of Fortune is originally from there. Takes place there, and we get to the plot deepens, it thickens and stuff, right? And Stargirl decides that she's going to sneak out with the new Red Arrow, and they're going to save these kids, and things happen about and things like that. A little bit of a mystery. Who is it? Why did these kids disappear? And it's all fun, right? But the greatest thing about this is that it ties in with the 7 Soldiers of Victory, and we find out that there were not 2 Green Arrows, one from World War II and the current our favorite liberal with the goatee, if you will, right? But it turns out it was the same person. They were trapped in time for a little bit, right? They play with time in here. The theme is time travel and stuff, and it actually works. It's one of the few stories that deals a little bit with time travel and time getting messed with that your eyes don't cross. And to me, that's a big plus. But I think the magic of this is that it uses the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. It's just straightforward. A lot of fun, a little bit of a cliffhanger. Doesn't get off track, and it works. So this is one of the better books that came out. And like I said, it's fun. It's not deep. It's not something that's going to be award winning or anything like that, right? But it's just a solid comic, finally, right? A little bit of pacing issues, but that's a personal thing, right? You probably won't even notice, and I won't get into that, right? But yeah, I liked how we had a callback to the 7 Soldiers of Victory. We get a little wink and a nod to the Crimson Avenger. We get a little wink and nod to his sidekick, Wing, who, if you know the history of that character, you know that he really got gypped in life. Let's put it that way, and in comics and stuff, right? And like I said, some of those sidekicks are silly and some are cool, but it all goes with the theme. He really taps into the 40s feel when things could be a little bit more fun. So yeah, good stuff there, right? So all of that ties into the Justice Society of America book that he has going on. And again, it deals with some time travel and going back and forth, things like that. Great covers. And I missed, this is issue 7 and 8. And I'm missing 5 and 6. And sadly, you don't even notice. That's the problem with this book. If anything relevant happened in those 2 issues I missed, you can't even tell. It picks right up from where I was at, right? So to me, these little books here are the best thing going at DC, and I love how like it's in its own little corner. Jeff Johns is now, he's not right trying to be Alan Moore again like he was with Doomsday Clock and some stuff he was doing. I don't know what he was doing there, but he's definitely doing a little bit of decompressed storytelling here, pacing it out and stuff like that. I feel like a lot more story could be told for a lot more bang for our buck going on. And like I said, whatever happened in 2 issues of this that I missed, I'm not missing anything. I don't know what that says. Okay, so who knows? I mean, I will get the other 2 issues at some point, but I picked right up and went, I didn't really notice until I got ready to file these away under my Justice Society stuff. And I'm like, did I not order 2 issues? I don't know what happened. But yeah, I didn't even notice that I missed 2 issues. There you go. I don't know what to say there, right? And that is, like I said, beautiful covers. There's multiple covers that come out with these, right? So I'm getting like the cardstock ones with, look nice. So yeah, that's kind of cool that's going on there. Good morning, man. We got some people coming in. Sequential Geek is here. Good morning. And we've got Michael Gallant. I believe that's what it says. Thank you. I don't have my glasses on. All right. So anyway, say hello if you're out there and stuff, right? Then we come to this, right? I don't know to recommend this or not. I need more reading. The Alan Scott, Tim Sheridan book, Green Lantern. No, I would not recommend that to anybody. If I had the actual issues here, I would give more of a comment on those, right? But I didn't pay my money because I don't buy garbage on purpose. Okay, but with these newer books, this is a 6-issue miniseries of Sandman coming out, right? And yes, this is issue 1 and 2. These came out. When did number 2 come out here? Yeah, November, and I believe this one was October of 2023, and I had them ordered, right? I let my new comics, they accumulate in a queue with my comic book store. When they reach, I think, $85, they get shipped to me for free, right? So I read these, and I read them, and I honestly cannot tell you what's going on, what the plot is. It's not dense reading. It's not confusing. I'm just sort of like, what is he doing? It's a lot of talking, a lot of walking around, and a lot of things that I feel like are supposed to have meaning, but they don't. And I'm locked in. I've already pre-ordered up to issue 5, so I might as well I've already this very month I'm pre-ordering number 6, so I'm just going to have 6 issues. These may end up on eBay. Now, when it comes to Sandman, part of my problem may be that I have recently collected all 70 issues plus the annual of the 90s Sandman Mystery Theater by Matt Wagner, Steve Seagal, Guy Davis, and a few other people from the 90s. And this is immaculate. 4-story arcs, pulp crime, part pulp fiction. It's actually the love story of Wesley and Diane. And I think it's her name. One time to go blank. And the pulp Sandman stories is sort of set in the background, and they have different depending on the story, the involvement is sometimes deep and sometimes it's in the background and stuff like that, right? And I'm probably halfway through this series of reading and stuff. This is issue 51 that actually has a tiny bit of a Neil Gaiman Sandman tie-in there, if you will. Maybe, okay? And we'll just leave it at that, right? This is just a spare issue I had laying around for purposes of the video and stuff, right? So maybe it's a case of, I don't know if the series is going to be anybody's cup of tea, or maybe it's because I've read much better before and seen the character handled, seen the character handled much better. I don't know. So do I recommend it? No. Do I say don't buy it? No. I'm not hating it, but I don't know what to say what's going on. So let me grab something real quick for this next part. See, I don't even have to be specific. All I got to do is grab anything Kirby, right? So I took a chance. Okay, so the last couple of years doing these live shows, talking to friends, being out and about, It's on the tips of the tongue of a lot of people, their disappointment with the modern books. I'm not being I'm not it's no secret. There's no epiphany here, right? But when things come up, you can always hear about a book or two that's recommended, that's good, people trying to be positive and stuff, right? And Lord knows I waved that flag forever. And we'll just let me check my message here. Sorry, guys. Like I said, for you guys popping in, we're here late this morning because my wife is under the weather. Yeah, we'll check that later. That's from yesterday. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I've got a message from yesterday. It just popped up in Messenger. Anyway, so they're always like, well, this book is great. This is the best book that DC's putting out, right? So Kingdom Come, Alex Ross, Mark Waid. And I remember a day where Mark Waid was upfront all about, hey, man, Kingdom Come is Alex's baby, man. I'm just here to steer, funnel, make it better, to help. He wasn't quite a candle on a birthday cake, but he was probably the icing in the candle. You get what I'm saying? The substance came from Ross, right? So he returns to it. And over the years, we've had The Kingdom, which was by Mark Waid, where we had a sequel to it because creative differences. And then years later, Alex Ross was able to do a Justice Society story with Jeff Johns to do his like prequel to it, if you will. And this is like a prequel, right? But World's Finest, we have our characters. This is the second part of, I guess, a 4-part story where Mark Waid brings us into World's Finest. And over here somewhere, I had the part 1 of this, right? I got off eBay and picked up late. So I get this. World's Finest number 21. So I'm thinking the story goes from 20 to issue 24. I don't really know, right? So everybody's saying this is the best book that DC is putting out. And, if you follow Waid online, you have to be very forgiving. Separate the writer from the works and stuff. You know what I mean? So his work and everything, right? And I get this. So this is the laziest book I have ever seen. Again, I have been reading Mark Waid since the 90s. I know he hit big with The Flash, and that's probably our rated stuff, but I think I read some of his Justice League Quarterly stuff. He caught my attention. He was an editor first, but he caught my attention on some real low-key stories that I'm sure if I dug through my books, I would find. But then it's like Mark Waid was on fire, and he's only written very few things I could not stand. I thought his Superman Birthright was a dumpster fire, and his 3-boot, I think is what it was, the Jet Legion of Superheroes in the 2000s was blasphemous. I thought that was it was horrible. It was so horrible that when they brought in Jim Shooter and, to come back to the book and stuff like that, he just acted like everything that Waid did in that series never happened except the costumes. And he turned them into the Legion proper. It was horrible. Anyway, so we get in this, and this has got to be some of the laziest stuff, and I'm going to show you why. And Something Is Killing the Children does the same thing, but we'll talk about that book separate, right? But now this book, I paid 35% off on it. This book is $3.99. Yes, money matters. I don't care. I don't want to waste. First of all, I don't waste my money on garbage on purpose, right? If I'm going to budget my money and buy things, and I'm one of those people, I don't apologize for it. It served me well. I still got this for 35% off of $3.99, right? And here's what you're paying for, right? So we come in here and we get very few panels, right? 2 panels on the first 3 panels, actually, and they're all the same scene and everything like that. Thunder Boy or whatever the hell is his name is messing them up, right? And then we get this. This is your 2-page splash that you're paying for. That is not art. Yeah, that's part of the story. And then we go in there, right? Okay. And it's very thin reading, very thin reading, right? Sure. Okay. Pacing is weird. Obviously, they're thinking about trade, how to put this story into trade, which may be the way to go and everything like that. And it's a $3.99 book. But we go back to years where comics were 20 cents a piece, right? And they actually did come out monthly. And I did the math the other day. Like, what is in 1973, comics were 20 cents. So what kind of, with inflation over, 51 years, what is 20 cents worth now, right? And take it with a grain of salt, but I'm within 10 cents, I think. But $1.49 is what it's worth now. 20 cents 50 years ago is the equivalent of $1.49 now, maybe $1.69. I can't remember, right? So we go back to Commandy. Yes, I have all the Kirby issues of Commandy. Let's put it that way, right? And in every issue of Commandy, which blew my mind, um, this is what you would get, right? You would get the cover, then you would get your traditional splash page, right? Most of the time, and then we would get like these immaculate two page spreads that were just mind blowing, right? Just an artist being an artist and being creative, and that was a staple of this book. Oh, okay. So I found my bookmark. Apparently, I'm in the middle of a reread, right? So where am I at here? Number 4. I've read this series from front to back so many times. All right. So same thing. We're up to issue number 4. We have something fun going on in our post-apocalyptic world. We have Commandy reading Demon number 1 by Jack Kirby. That's how you plug a book, my friends. And then we turn the page and it's another two page spread, of art for 20 cents, equivalent of $1.69 today. I'm just making a point here. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if I want to get more bang for my buck, are you really going to give me a two-page spread that says "World's Finest"? I mean, it's already on the front of the book. Can you imagine having a trade and you're flipping through there and it's like they're reminding you of what trade you bought? You know. And yeah, so I'm going to talk about that again in a minute here. So what's up? Oh, Palo's here. What's up, Palo? Good morning. These writers, they're 5 to 10 years younger than me, yet they seem to have no way to understand the past from their parents, let alone their grandparents. Sandman and Green Lantern suffer for it. Yeah, yeah. Kirby delivered. That's right, man. And this is what I'm saying. As I'm reading newer stuff, it's so amazing how I'm focused on the book. I'm trying to read what I'm trying to read, and there's so little there to kind of keep me interested that my mind decides, I'd rather be reading this. Like it's this. I kind of like it. It's almost like my subconscious is coming forward and telling me what I really like to read. You know what I'm saying? What it wants and stuff, right? Okay, so I think you get the point with that. I think I've drove that into the ground. So yeah, I kind of recommend if you can get it on the cheap in a trade. So I got that trade for like $10, and getting 6 books would have been $25 or something like that. So yeah, and I've got other stuff here to read. I'm not going to show you. I'm packing up. I'm showing you what I have read, right? So let me put all this up. I got a lot here. I don't want to get confused. We're having a good time this morning, right? So we're going to go to this, all right? Now, I've told the tale many times. This came up because I pulled these out, right? I've done some organizing in here, and I was really proud of my X-Men collection, right? It's a, excuse me. But because you understand, I was 12 years old in 1985 when I came around to the X-Men, and it was this very book. It's because of Art Adams, right? Art Adams is the guy. I've always had this thing in me where I'm cantankerous, because if I heard a lot of people loving something, like if it was trendy or it was mainstream and accepted, I automatically went the other way. I would find things that would become big 6 months later, if they ever did become big, right? And I still have that in me a little bit, right? I had that for a long time. So, of course, everybody loved X-Men, so thus I wasn't about to check it out, right? And I also, with my budgeting back then as a kid, $5, $5 a week allowance and stuff, right? And I had a lot of things to do. Grab on your bike. I had to go to the movies on Sunday. I had to ride around town. I'm going to get my He-Man. I was starting to play Dungeons and Dragons. I had to save up for the books, things like that. I always got I really geared towards books that had a lot of characters in them, teen books mostly and stuff, right? More heroes for your money and stuff, right? And then this came out, and I looked at it, and it had to be mine, right? So the Asgardian Wars. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on with my voice this morning. The Asgardian Wars. There's a. I've already put it up, but there's a 2-issue miniseries of X-Men and Alpha Flight by Paul Smith and Chris Claremont. That's sort of a prequel to this. It shows you what Loki's motivation is for deciding to mess with the X-Men. And he goes after the New Mutants in a way to get at the X-Men. And he wants Storm. He wants Storm bad. In this era, Storm has lost her powers and nobody knows it. And Loki is going to have her be the new Thunder Goddess, if you will, right? So anyway, you come in and you have Art Adams on this New Mutant special, and this was the first book, along with a few other books of this, that was stolen right out of my room, and I know exactly who did it, and I went after his ass. Never got it back, so I have multiple. I buy multiple copies of this, right? But this was one that brought me into the X-Men, and I was able to build up probably like an 85-piece set of X-Men books, right? It continued in giant size X-Men. This is the very one that I had. This wasn't stolen from. I mean, it is beat up, red, dirty. My freaking 12-year-old fingerprints are on it from the dirt outside where, I should have bathed before I touched my comics and stuff. And this made me an X-Men fan. And in 1993, I sold about an 80-issue run of X-Men, not including annuals and stuff, but I kept what I really love. Don't get me wrong. And I sold that for like something like $300 at the time. In 1993, that was a good deal. To a comic book shop in, God, not Rocky Gap. Where was that? Sorry, guys. I'm trying to figure out where it was. It'll probably pop in my head. Oh, I can see it. It's Coburn Wise. It's up in that area. There's even a community college there. Anyway, if it Rocky Mount, maybe. I don't know. They shot a movie there about a decade ago. But anyway, little small town. But anyway, then over the years I was able to build it back up and stuff, right? Because I was like, regretted it and stuff, right? And I got through my books, and a lot of those earlier issues are beat up because I reread them and stuff, right? But going back to that holds up. There's so much that goes on in these two issues that the rereadability, you can reread them, and it never gets dull. Each character of the New Mutants and how they interact. What's great about it is that Chris Claremont kept everybody in character, and he put them in a different setting. These New Mutants do not fit on Earth, but you stick them in Asgard, and they end up finding their way. And then there's a little monkey's paw ending there, if you will, thanks to Loki, in order to save everybody. So yeah, he kind of, that was what was so great about it. It's one of the books that really made me pay attention to characterization. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have the words of what he was doing, but when I started learning about it more, that's exactly where my mind went. You take your characters, you have them be living, breathing people where people can call out when they would not act a certain way if they did something out of character, but it's what it's where you put them, the situation you put in them, how would they deal with it. And that's what was so fantastic about that. Top-notch writing by Chris Claremont. That's what sucked me into the X-Men. And my mind went there. I ended up getting those out and had a blast rereading them. Art Adams' artwork holds up. Walt Simonson comes in, Bob Wiacek, a lot of other guys come in and they're inking this young guy named Art Adams. Fantastic stuff, man. So yeah, I still recommend getting the Asgardian Awards. Fantastic stuff, right? So I'll tell you what, we're gonna go ahead and talk about something that's killing the children. You guys up for that? And then we're probably going to end with this little stack that I have here because it's all Sandman, Hellboy, Batman related, that kind of stuff, right? And then I got a few books here I might show. I don't know, right? So I think if you watched me a few weeks ago, I talked about ordering this on Amazon because time is flying by for me, guys. I will be 51 this year. And I could not believe that this book came out around 2013 or 14. And the story behind it is there was a couple people pitching at DC to do some Commandy stuff. And thanks to like things like Ryan Sook on Wednesday Comics and a few other things like that, nobody was being able to do Commandy because DC had plans for him at the time, right? Kurt Busiek came up and he had a Commandy pitch, and that turned into Autumn Lands, right? If you want to read Autumn Lands, you can squint your eyes a little bit, look a little bit sideways, and see how that was going to be a Commandy story, right? And this was a Commandy story by Paul Pope called Badland Boy. And a lot of people have already read it. Thanks to my Instagram, I already know that stuff, right? But I was like, I'll get around to reading it. I'll get around to reading it. And next thing I know, over a decade's gone by, and I never got around to reading it. So I finally got this. And you talk about being unfinished, but this is a hardback version of the complete story. I'm assuming this is how it came out. And this was fantastic. This was really good. I like how it does have an indie feel to it. The pacing works well. I almost read all of this in one setting. Yet, if despite not a lot really happening, it's world building, introducing our characters, showing what Battling Boy can do, can't do, and it has this young adult. I don't know why they call them young adult. I guess it's to not be insulting or anything like that, right? But you can tell exactly who this is written for, right? Middle school. I think this is a middle school to freshman book. There's some aspects there that are very cool, dealing with your dad, uh, having your parents. His parents are gods more or less, and apparently they're monster hunters. That's a theme here. That's why I have these two together. And having to run to your dad to help you when the whole point of this is you're supposed to be growing up and learn to take care of yourself, right? So basically, when you turn 13, you end up sent out away from the family, very Spartan like, if you will, in my mind. And I can't remember what they call it, man, but you're on your own journey for now, right? And you have to start growing up and deal with your own problems. And this is written in a way to where like you're going somewhere to battle monsters that are popping up, big monsters, that godlike monsters and stuff, right? And Battle Boy ends up on sort of a dystopian Earth, I guess, and he ends up faking it, right? He gets certain powers, certain power levels from whatever t-shirt he wears. And he lands on Earth. They've been having problems with these kaiju monsters. He gets out there, mentally calls for his dad, who's fighting his own monster 100 times worse than what Battling Boy is dealing with. And his dad ends up throwing a thunderbolt at it from a dimension away while he's taking care of this bigger monster, and destroys it. And everybody thinks Battling Boy does it. And now he's a celebrity, and the politics of the town are trying to drag him in. Very good stuff. And I guess he never continued it. So a very well self-contained book, and I think it's ironic when we have something new that came out that deserved to keep going. It didn't keep going for whatever reason. Now I think there's some books related to Battling Boy, but they're not by Paul Pope. And I stopped digging in there because it seems like they had a big feminist agenda with what they were describing, whatever the one shots or books or whatever they were out there. You never heard of them? Well, there's a reason. Okay, so nobody's missing anything, right? But Battling Boy, the greatest adventure, never continued. This was good, man. This is Beowulf, man. This had a great feel to it. A lot of fun. Um, Good tone, a lot of feeling, and like I said, the pacing. I can't put my finger on what he did, but you can tell he's not in the mentality of I got to fill 22 pages or I've got to fill a trade. You know what I mean? Like it feels like it's a very organic story, if you will. Just whatever felt right is what it felt like, right? But then we come to the other end of that. Okay, of that whole feeling, and to me, this book shows why I think editors are important sometimes with books and stuff, right? I heard about something is killing the children from the get-go. People were loving the book and stuff, right? But I'm one of those people. I remember the hype for Saga. I remember the hype for Walking Dead. And Walking Dead was huge, and Walking Dead did have the substance. These aren't putting those books down, right? But they were indeed overhyped. And some of them finally really did cool off. So whenever an indie book gets big and things like that, I'm not really that impressed. I'll listen, but it doesn't give me a burning desire to read it. And then when you hear things like there might be a Netflix show or something like that, I've heard there might be a show based on this. Who knows, right? For you people that don't know, I was at work. Well, I mean, I don't expect you to know what happened at work, but we're going to talk about Netflix. But I tell you what, I was at work the other day, and somebody was buying a Roku, and I was sitting there telling them what they can find on the Roku, how it's the Wild West, what apps you can watch free stuff on and stuff, right? And somebody brought up, I could tell they were getting a little competitive with me. They brought up the fact of, you ever watch Sugar Tooth on Netflix? And I'm like, what? I've never heard of Sugar Tooth. And she told me the plot of the TV show, and I went, that's Sweet Tooth. It was a comic book. I have the first issue and stuff, right? But do you guys know that there's a Sweet Tooth TV show out there? You may have at one point, but we can just tell how that took off. You know what I mean? So it's kind of the same thing with this. Something's killing the children. All right. We got people popping in here. I think I've already said good morning to little Jimmy Fireball. If not, good morning. John C. Like, subscribe, share the video, be like John C. Make sure when you subscribe, you hit that bell to know when I do these shows so you can jump in there. JP is out there. Good morning. And Gorbadal, saga trigger warning, please. So, I know people love their saga. I'm not doing that to troll people or anything like that. But yeah, I just reached a point with that when we I can tell you exactly the moment I fell out of saga after giving it some, like, they had some great characters and stuff, right? The Spider Lady, I can't believe I can't think of her name, was a favorite of mine. The Lion Cat gave me a chuckle, but I didn't understand why people fell in love, whatever, but when he was sitting there with bandages or wrapped around his head trying to be incognito while they watched their kid play at a playground, I was out. That finally ripped it for me. Having those bandage on your face will bandage, you're incognito and you're wearing bandages on your face. That's that brings a lot more attention and suspicion than anything. I guess when you're a parent, things that would, you've been there, you've been in that situation, you've been in that environment, what would and would not work. Anyway, so what happened was is I found volume 2 and 3. This is issue 5 through 15 or 6 through 15 of Something is Killing the Children for $1, right? And these trades, $15, $14.99. I did this wrong, right? These two here. This third one, I ended up getting $10 off of Amazon. It's a $15 trade, but I found it for 10. And when it came in, it was damaged. So, I may end up giving these as a gift instead of trying to resell them, I guess, right? So I want to start from the beginning. I had a friend or two tell me what you think. Let me know. I've been thinking about diving in there and stuff, right? And thank goodness I made the call to get this first volume because the first story arc, 15 issues to get through the first story, and very little happens through each issue, right? So far, some of the feedback I got, one of my buddies likes the idea that they can just move through the series. I think this is like up to issue 35 now, I guess, and this is the first 15. And number one, this feels like the whole idea there is a house of slaughter, right? And apparently it's a very old institution, if you will, with its agents. It's black agents, it's white agents, whatever, black mask, white mask, and stuff, right? And what they've done is for centuries, they have battled monsters that are real, that feed on children so they become powerful. And all of a sudden, they have this one girl named Erica Slaughter who's decided to go against the institution and thinks she knows better than years and years and decades and generations of them doing this, because she feels like they're all more about the cover up than actually saving people, right? Um, so the Monster Hunters thing, right? I just showed a book where we talked about Monster Hunters. You know what I mean? Not a unique idea, but a very good spin, right? It's like a magician doing the same trick, but their presentation is fantastic, right? Now, for some reason that I don't know if I can really expand on, it's more of a feeling, and I could be completely wrong. I read these in an hour, all 15 issues of it. Very little happens. It feels like it takes place in one night. And Erica Slaughter, our main character, our little ponytail wearing, you know, machete welding monster hunter here, running around with giving attitude and stuff, right? It's very close to being a Mary Sue. I don't like titles to where you elevate females by making everybody stupid around her, right? That's lazy storytelling, right? Or everybody's a bumbling fool, or they're adorkable and stuff, right? She comes off a little abrasive, but I think she came off better and better as the story went on, right? She can back up what she's doing and stuff, right? She's not exactly the chosen one, right? And I think I don't like these stories of, like, I get rebellion and doing your things, rebellion being a little punk rock, questioning authority and stuff. But I don't think it works with what they've instituted here, because basically what happens is that monsters seem to come from, they're created by children in their stories, and the more they believe and the more they're talked about, people come out. This is kind of like what they did in a Nightmare on Elm Street, where they locked all the kids up in a institution, asylum, so nobody would talk about Freddy. They figured out the power came from believing and talking about him. They're trying to get everybody to forget about him and not have the thought, the idea, the belief spread around to where he's there. So that's might be, I think, a flaw for me. And I'm probably looking too deep into it, but that's a flaw for me, is when, well, you're sacrificing a few to save the many, and you don't have a choice. You can't predict when a child is going to create a monster, you know. But anyway, other than that, the fact that very little happens. So I can't remember how much these books were. So I don't know what they were when they came out, but I think most indie books are, I don't know, $3 to $5. So for 15 issues for $45, you get 15 books where very little happens in each issue, but it does make a story arc. The pacing is going to be up to you if you like that. This is what happened with me with DC 52 books with the compressed storytelling and stuff. I read something like 17 issues of Green Lantern after Blackest Night, and it went to DC 52, and they kept the same team on. And it drove me nuts because everything that happened in this 15 issues, it's like nothing happened. They were right back where they started out. You know, they were still floating in space and very little had happened. That drives me nuts, right? Another thing that bothered me is that this book takes place in Wisconsin, and I could be wrong. You know, I did one setting here, but I feel like it did go over the course of a few days. The House of Slaughter, the monster hunters, if you will, this branch that Erica Slaughter is from, you know, if you've ever seen Wanted, the assassins, I think you get it, right? Anyway, so they come in here, and their house is in Chicago, right? I looked it up. From Chicago to just the state line of Wisconsin is 3.5 hours. So the writer came up with a very good idea that was believable of how he got the entire town and all their kids to be hanging out at night in the parking lot of a high school, right? Made sense what they were doing, right? So many kids are killed that the morgue couldn't fit the bodies in, so they ended up using the school gym. Okay, the school gym is where they've got all the kids laid out. Everybody's coming to town to sit there with the news and everything like that to try to identify some of the bodies, right? And the monsters come out. Meanwhile, we're flashing back from this Wisconsin town, which I don't know how deep it is into Wisconsin. And we're flashing back. We're going over, not flashing back, but we're transitioning over to Chicago in the House of Slaughter. And somebody's giving orders and people are to go there. So somehow they're traveling 3 to 5 hours and popping right up in the middle of this going on in one night towards the end. I couldn't get my head wrapped around that. I'm like, give me a caption, give me a box, let me know if this is before, after, during, whatever is going on. But it really came off like these people, and they did say, "Do I get a driver?" And no, you don't get a driver. So the people that are getting sent out to this town to clean up Erica's mess and stuff like that, they have put it in the story that they're driving. Okay, that's what I mean. A good writer wastes nothing in the story. Everything moves the story forward, or it'll give you a moment to collect yourself. Or if it's a horror movie, you give them a little moment to breathe, to relax, and laugh a little bit before the next scare comes. There's all kinds of little writing techniques. And it's so easy to sit here and talk about it instead of actually doing it. So, so the positives of this, right? You might like, if you can get past the pacing, if that pacing doesn't bother you like it does me, cool. All right. I don't like this. To me, this could have been told in 4 to 6 issues, but we get 15. But it also works. We also get what I can't stand. I don't know if this is like how it is in the actual series, in the actual comics, not the trade, but we get that 2-page spread where we get 5 words, excuse me, 5 words on a 2-page spread. I cannot stand that, right? That is such a waste of space to move the story along, right? 15 issues of that, that's 30 pages weighted. That's an entire comic, plus advertisements, okay, in a letters page. Wasted in the long run of that, right? That could be story and stuff, right? Now, the good thing about it is that the tone stays consistent. For some reason, what popped in my head was like a John Carpenter horror movie. And I don't know if that's fair to say. That's just where it took me. I could change my mind the next time I read through this and stuff, right? So do I recommend it? I recommend sampling it. I recommend finding it in a way to where you won't waste a lot of money because I found it very engaging. And once you get reading, that very little storytelling in each issue lets you fly through it. I read 15 issues, 3 trades in about an hour. And I know it took, we'll say an hour and a half, because I know I took a break or two and wasn't really paying attention to the time. But when it was over with, I'm like, that's it. I mean, and these are heavier, I've been holding them up and I can feel the weight on them. So yeah, something is killing the children. I think this book got super popular, in my opinion, because of what's out there. The competition isn't there. So when you get something with a little substance, something that's a little, I mean, something's killing the children. This tells you exactly everything you need to know about the book. It delivers exactly what you're getting. What is killing the children? Somebody is fighting the children, right? It's got that KISS method, right? Here's the plot. Keep it simple, stupid. There's monsters out there killing them. What's the monster's motivation? Who's killing it? And what does everybody want? So it has those, right? So all the structure is there. But if it had, I think if it had an editor on it that really got involved, we would have condensed the story to at least 12 issues, in my opinion. But like I said, I think 15 were too much for what they did here, right? Now, also, if you go back to, I'm taking you way back. This just popped in my head. Go way back to Todd McFarlane getting his Spider-Man title, and what was it, 1990, 91? And the first, I don't know, what was it, 6 issues? He had a story that took place in one night, actually a couple of hours in Spider-Man. He played around with the idea of having a story, played with the pacing of it to where it took over. I'm all for experimentation. I think people doing things like that, right? So yeah, I've seen that before. I've seen it work in other places before. And what I like about Todd McFarlane, just before you think I'm saying Todd McFarlane is a better writer than James Tynion here, because he's not, is Todd McFarlane has never claimed to be a good writer. If you go back and read the letter columns in his Spider-Man books, he's begging for critique, begging for people to tell him how to be a better writer. That's why Todd McFarlane gets a pass. He doesn't try to be something he's not. You know what I mean? So James Tynion, great idea, moments of great execution. I think it's just a personal thing where I just didn't like the pacing. A lot of it's a lot of time, it's a lot of paper, a lot of places and stuff like that in the book that, could have moved a little bit faster here. Here's what we have here. Oh, wow. Some great stuff. I'm not triggered by Saga. I'm just baffled by its popularity. Paula Costa, I think, appeals to readers who like romance fantasy, like the adult fiction, which is very popular with acquaintance of friends. Yeah, I'm not a Saga hater, but it was not what it was hyped to be at the time, right? So unfair expectations, I think, came up for a lot of people. It's the subject matter isn't the problem. It's just that Brian K. Vaughan used to bamboozle with good stories and lousy endings. Not wrong with Saga. He's not even trying to bamboozle you. When I saw the title, I thought about the Spanish film Who Can Kill a Child, about a couple arrive at a village popular by kids who killed off the adults. Good movie. My mind, with you saying that, goes back to the classic Star Wars story where they land on the planet and it's just the children there. And I knew the title until I started talking about this. Anyway, Paulo Costa, Vaughn wants to please his audiences to telling them an interesting story, but his readership wants to be pleased and don't care about the story so much. Okay. Interesting. Friends who still read it stopped last year for their satisfaction. Focus on that. Interesting. Something's Killing Children is a fan favorite on YouTube, and at my local comic shop, I haven't read it. Well, like I said, it's if I was going to recommend something new to somebody, I would say to them exactly what I said here. Find a way to check it out before you invest the money. The pacing is the only thing that really makes me tell people not to get it, but that's a personal preference. It's kind of hard to say it's a critique when my critique is that's not the way I would have done it. That's not a critique. That's a personal thing. You know what I mean? I do think some editing would have helped, but again, it's a comic book. I couldn't imagine buying this book month to month and getting that little amount of story. That would definitely not do anything for me. I think trade is the way to go, and use trade is the better way to go. And then decide on your own there. But out of all the stuff that's been coming out, in the last 5 or 6 years and stuff, I get it. You know what I mean? If I had just started collecting comics 5, 6, 7 years ago and stuff, this book probably would blow me away. Just by competition. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I kind of get it. I get why people are excited about it, and I'm not dumping on it. I think I'm just giving a very broad idea of what you're getting into if you haven't sampled it yet. And then if you like it and stuff like that, great, man. Just imagine if Bernie Wrightson from the 70s was on something like Something's Killing the Children. Exactly. Exactly. If I take something that's killing the children, and the artwork in it is exactly what it needs to be. It's very simple, very simple art that does exactly what it needs to do. Oh, and I'm looking at this, and look at this 2020 Best New Eisner Series nominee. Look at that. And I tell you what, I stopped paying attention to what was Eisner winning when I saw some of the people that were getting nominated for Eisners, and you knew it was political. I've always known that awards and things like that were political, but the people that were winning Eisners and stuff, their work backed it up. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, yeah, but Tom Bagley, you're absolutely right. If Bernie Wrightson came out now doing this stuff, holy shit, man. Yeah. I haven't met anyone who dislikes something's killed children. Awesome. That's why I'm saying I'm not burying the book. That this was an objective look at it, and I even admit that my critique, what I have problems with, and I don't have to defend myself. I know that I'm not being defensive. I'm just making it clear that my problem with it is something that's a preference, not something that James Tinian did per se. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some things there that could I think could be refined. There you go, a little refinement. I think, yeah. All right, what we got here? Excellent stuff, Howler. Putting on my boots and going to go shovel some snow and clean off the cars. Gotta love the snow. I'm with you. I've done a little of that this morning. So now we're going to go back a little bit, right? We're going to go back. So let's see if we can't kind of get some kind of order on these last few books here, right? All right. So just to take a minute, we mentioned Star Trek a minute ago, Gore, and I know now I see why my mind went to Star Wars about the episode with all the kids, and I can't believe I can't think of what that episode's called. But all of a sudden, Wrath of Khan, when it comes to Star Trek, the comics of the 80s, Michael W. Barr and things like that, reading them and stuff, I never really latched on to some of these licensed properties back in the day, right? And then out of nowhere, maybe it's nostalgia, maybe it's my thing, right? But to me, I think Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, is a fantastic film. I think that is the film that you could take out of Star Trek lore, get it out from under that umbrella, out of that genre, and you actually have a film that stands on its own. You know what I mean? And then you come back around to Star Trek 3, which is, when you watch it, is 1984. I loved it when it came out. It's heavy duty sci-fi, got a touch of cheese, I think, and things like that. And yeah, I put out in the universe that I wanted the Star Trek 4 comic adaptation for some reason. I have all the movies on in a DVD set. I had all the movies on VHS. I've gone through these and stuff like that, right? I never considered myself a hardcore tracker, but if you put me in the middle of them and stuff, I can hold my own. You know what I'm saying? And I go to Ollie's and they have their little 5 packs in this outlet store, 5 packs of old comics and stuff that you buy in a pack. And right there staring at me after putting this out in the universe is the comic book adaptation that I wanted. Less than 2 weeks after I put it out in the universe that I was thinking about getting this. I was watching a few of these on eBay and stuff, right? And of course it does have a dog-eared corner because it's a 40-year-old book, which is fine, right? And going back and reading this, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, someone made a comment a few weeks ago when I was going back and reading things. I think I was talking about X-Files and things like that. I'm finding myself being very forgiving on a lot of books, taking them for what they were, what they are, what they continue to be and stuff. And the comment was saying that I've read some of the dredge that's been coming out for the few years, and you realize, it's much better than what's coming out now. So yeah, I love this cover. I want to say it's a Sienkiewicz, but I don't think it is. If it is, it's very tame for a Sienkiewicz. Let's see what it says here. Believe it or not, it does not say who did the cover. Anyway, the great Tom Sutton does the adaptation in here. Tom Sutton, you know who Tom Sutton is. Oh, I can't believe it doesn't say who did the cover. I'll have to look that up. Anyway, there's the cover. And like I said, the great Tom Sutton comes in and does some fantastic artwork in here for what it is. If you've seen the movie, you've seen this book. It's just a straightforward adaptation and stuff, right? And I found myself being able to turn off my brain and play the movie in my mind while I read through there and skip through there and stuff, right? So yeah, there you go. That's what it is. So also at Ollie's over this past week when I ended up there, right? I ended up getting this hardcover, right? And this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. I'm doing more and more of things that I have read that I can put on the bookshelf, so I don't have to dig through the boxes and go through them and stuff, right? So if these get a little beat up, I'm not really that beat up about it, right? But what we have here, if you followed me on Instagram, I'm Howler Mouse on Instagram, is that we have the Batman Dark Knight 3, if you will, the Master Race. And this is where Frank Miller had some assistance from Brian Azzarello, and then he had Adam Kubert come in and do the art. And this was a 9-issue miniseries, and each issue had a little mini comic that came in, and a lot of people were noticing Frank Miller's art. They felt like that it had declined and a few things and whatever. And if you go all the way back, which I can't believe it's been 22 years since we got the sequel, and Dark Knight Returns came out, the original, the classic, came out in 1986. We get this third one. What was this, 2017, guys? Help me out. I might be misremembering. So when this came out, after the fiasco that I didn't really understand with Dark Knight Strikes Back, the sequel, made a lot of people angry. What I noticed about it is that anything that did not have to do with Batman was excellent in that series. But anything that had to do with Batman and Robin wearing all the weird Legion clothes and whatever was going on with that, yeah, that was pretty bad. But the rest of it, I mean, I wanted an Atom. I wanted the Atom. Ray Palmer, the Atom. What Frank Miller was doing with Ray Palmer, the Atom, that should have been the series. So I kind of get it, right? This was very safe. A lot of people, not just me, we remember having the conversations. This came out at a time where we were I was with more YouTubers behind the scenes. We were having discussions and stuff, 9 to 10 people and stuff getting together that viewers never saw. All of us talking back then. A lot of those people don't even have channels anymore. I mean, we were talking about it, and it felt like Azzarello was brought in to kind of steer and guide Frank Miller to come in and to keep it safe. You know what I mean? Rein in the outlaw a little bit and stuff. And Adam Kubert came in and he did a fantastic job on the artwork. And there's no doubt in my mind that Frank Miller was providing page layouts or something, right? There's quite a few bits and pieces that are Miller here, right? Now rereading this years ago, I've got the hardback over here. I got the 9-issue hardback with the slipcase. I got random issues of the original one and stuff like that. I didn't hate it, but I thought, oh, this is very safe. Well, I reread this, and I reread this in one setting, guys, all the way through. And I don't want to say that this is like some kind of 5-star book, because it's not. But I'm just saying that I sat down and I read this, and when I was through reading it, I'm very satisfied, right? They pulled in the Lazarus pit. There's a little part in here where something happens to Batman. They pull in the Lazarus pit. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not. You know what I'm saying? And it harkened back to the first one for me, the first Dark Knight Returns, because if you went back and read what happened in the Dark Knight Returns is that everything with Batman was different, yet Frank Miller changed nothing. And this came together and made sense at the end, and it did the same thing. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. I'd even seen what had happened here before in another book by John Byrne in Generations, right? So yeah, it's not even a hack of that and stuff like that. It just made sense, and we got that little. There's a little towards as we get closer to the end, we start getting that feel again of the Dark Knight Returns proper, where Frank Miller changed nothing, and yet it's still different. That's an intangible, you know what I'm saying? Tone, you know what I mean? So yeah, this has actually gotten better than when it first came out. But again, guys, again, don't let me overhype this, but yeah, surprising. It surprised me that I actually wanted to read it all the way through. Okay, so there you go. Right. Thank you, Tom Bagley. Here we go. Google says that Howard Chaykin did the. See, this is why I love doing this stuff, man. We're all in this together, man. So that's a Howard Chaykin, watch me mess up his name. Howard Chaykin cover for Star Trek 3, the adaptation, and that should be 1984. Yeah, 1984. This is something I got a kick out of reading, right? So this isn't going to surprise any. Oh, wait a minute, we got more. I enjoyed the Phantom Menace comic book adaptation much more than the film. I will check that out. Because I think I have a random issue somewhere. I think I can see it in my head. It's a photo of Qui-Gon Jinn on the yeah. Anyway, I might need to read that, right? So Solomon Grundy popped into my head, right? I follow Fred Hembeck on Facebook. And mostly what you get out of him is a fantastic birthday greeting on your birthday, a birthday post by him. And then you will also get throughout the week multiple posts with about 5, sometimes more, sometimes less, uh, photos of his sketch cards that he does. And he puts them on eBay, and I believe he starts them out at $12.99 now. I've been buying off of him off and on since 2014 when they were $9.99. And I just so happen I got to pick this stuff up. I just so happen here's my old Metallica. I just ripped it. My old Metallica concert ticket from 1993. I was like I said, I've been organizing stuff, right? But yeah, I bought this off of him last year, 2023. So he does these sketch cards of random comic book characters from the 40s to the present. Um, Here's one. 2014 is when I got a Space Ghost, and I think that cost me $12. And the Gray Gargoyle, I looked up. This one probably, I think I got this for $15 or $16, and he just put one up a couple weeks ago. For some reason, it jumped up to $77. So anyway, I follow him on there, and what he did is that he posted a Solomon Grundy. Now, I don't know if it's Challenge of the Super Friends. I don't know the cartoon I used to watch when I was in kindergarten, where we had the Legion of Doom against the Super Friends proper. I don't know if it was him popping up in All-Star Squadron #3 when I was a kid. I don't know. But for some reason, I have a huge soft spot for Solomon Grundy, right? I just dig him, right? So that made me want to go back, and I pulled out this softcover omnibus. And right here, I have the hardcover omnibus. I need a #2, I think, to have all the out of print Starman omnibus. And y'all know about me, Starman. I've got videos from 10 years ago showing the complete series and stuff. So I ended up digging this out. This is now a reader's copy, I guess, but I still try to take care of it. But it has Solomon Grundy. Oh man, such good stuff in this, man. But this is Tony Harris, James Robinson doing the 90s Starman, and he pulled in a version of Solomon Grundy who became huge friends. God, this is so good. But anyway, I ended up going through, I don't know what this is, the first 15 issues in an annual or something. But I went through the first omnibus of James Robinson's Starman and just fell in love all over again. Um, ah, Such good stuff in here, man. Anyway, I'm sitting here wanting to watch and everything like that, right? So yeah, I ended up rereading this because I wanted to revisit Solomon Grundy. There's about a year and a half where Solomon Grundy really played a part in James Robinson's Starman that led to Alan Scott, Golden Age hero, then known as Sentry, and Batman and Jack Knight all ended up teaming up to try to save their version of Grundy. And it was a great conversation about Jack Knight talking about the 40s heroes being all bright and colorful versus Batman, who's all dark and brooding and who's really heroic, stuff like that. A lot of examinations. But I ended up pulling this out and revisiting this so that I could read a little bit more Solomon Grundy, because this was such a, yeah, here he is. This was such a very unique version of him. He's actually like a very friendly version, almost, if you will. He's still a monster, but he and Jack became very close friends. And he became even closer friends with Michael, the David Bowie's, Man Who Fell to Earth version of Starman. All the Starmen played a part in this. But anyway, just fantastic stuff in here. They actually end up talking and crying after he sees what's going on. So a very different take on Solomon Grundy, and we actually get to know him a little bit. So yeah, I've been rereading Starman again. And like you said, I'm off my game now because I just look at that stuff and it's just, I'm ready to dive in every time. All right. Nice high evolutionary card. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That Hembeck Space Ghost looks incredibly cool. I like to see the cartoon done with him and the Hembeck. That would be cool. Any cartoon done in a Fred Hembeck style would be really cool, I think. Nice. Batman Dark and Brooding. Just imagine him working at Starbucks. Yeah. I hope there's not a version. I'm just so glad in the multiple Earths out there, and the infinite Earths out there, that we've never seen emo Batman. We came close in the Justice League cartoon because he was singing "Am I Blue?" So, and something that I've been finally getting through. I've talked about this book a little bit, and I'm just taking my time. But this is a bunch of this is overseen by Neil Gaiman, and there's quite a few short stories in it by different authors, and these are all Neil Gaiman Sandman universe endless related characters related. Um, Sandman, the Book of Dreams. This was reissued last year because of the Netflix Sandman series. The only thing different is that little purple spot here that tells you about that. But this is a book that came out in 1996. That's towards the end of Sandman, the series ending proper. And I was like, oh, I'll get a hold of that. I was 23 years old and stuff, right? Little did I know 27 years would go by before I finally just grabbed this at a Book of Billions when it was reissued, right? That just tells you how much time can go by with before you know it, right? Battling Boy, Book of Dreams, The Sandman, and I am just taking my time going through this story by story, and so far I've enjoyed every one of them. The fantastic Cain and Abel story in this, like I said, I don't know where the author came from, but she actually managed to write Cain and Abel in character, much like they are in the comics and stuff, right? So I'm still continuing reading that. I kind of recommend this. If you don't like one story, you can just flip through it and you'll find one you do like. And like I said, just remember it is 90s Sandman centric, so if you're into that, I think you'll highly enjoy that. Let me see. Starman will always be my top 5 comic runs of all time. It's rich storytelling that just doesn't get done nowadays in American comics, in my opinion. I have read Starman so many times all the way through that I actually, if anybody was interested, I could do a side by side comparison where you can take Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run and put it beside of James Robinson's Starman run, and you're going to kind of see how they kind of match. You know what I mean? Alan Moore sent Swamp Thing into space towards the end of his run. Well, there's an arc there where he goes to space. There's a part where Batman Gotham City gets invaded by the Swamp Thing. Well, when he comes back, you find out the Mist for some reason has invaded Opal City. And he has to come together. You had all the vines and plants and stuff that Swamp Thing was throwing out there. Well, the Mist has filled it up full of black tendrils and stuff like that. There's a story where he goes to hell. Well, there's a story where there's a magical painted was it a Hawaiian shirt or Hawaiian tie that will take you, no, a movie poster, maybe it's a movie poster that will take you to hell, things like that, right? There's comparisons, and I think what it is that it was used as a guide, you know what I mean? So maybe I've just read too many comics, I don't know. The other thing I'm finishing up, my beautiful wife got this for me for three years ago, and I'm finally at least 2/3 or more of the way through it and stuff, but it is the library edition, the last one that I know of the proper Hellboy in Hell by Mike Mignola. And I'm telling you, man, this stuff is just captivating. You talk about, I mean, I've read interviews where Mike Mignola admitted that he would do whole pages of Hellboy and he would just rip them up and start all over. And I never really dove too far into it. Luckily, I got what I have around the Crooked Man. I kept that, but I didn't really get into the single issues too much because I found out that when Mike Mignola would put a trade out, he would put extra pages in there to help with the pacing compared to the comic. So I figure if there's going to be everything you could get to a complete story with all the pages and everything like that, it's going to be the library editions of Hellboy. I had the first one. I had the last one, and for some reason, I'm very satisfied with that. And like I said, I have several issues on little hardback or something, here and there, one shots and stuff everywhere. But very satisfied, just a very satisfying read, and it's to be savored. And the deceptively simple style of Mike Mignola of all this time. I mean, I have followed Mike Mignola. I mean, I was there when, God, what year was that? 85? I could be wrong, but I was there when Bill Mantlo and Mike Mignola was doing Hulk. John Byrne was doing Alpha Flight. They had the stories crossover and they switched books. I remember, I guess, I just remember him very well. But Mike Mignola really got my attention when he did Roll to Krypton with John Byrne, when he did Superman number 18 with John Byrne. It was thanks to John Byrne that I really started paying attention to Mike Mignola. And then we had Cosmic Odyssey, you know. So it's kind of blown my mind where I still feel like I came on to Mike Mignola late, but we're talking like 1987, you know, 36 years ago, and I still feel like I came on late. You know what I mean? And we're still going to be Sandman centric, right? Well, I gave in and I got on eBay and I found this for, let me get this right. I can't remember, $7 or $8, right? I have a full set of Sandman books by Neil Gaiman, right? I have the trades up here. I actually had the first trade that came out. Sandman is responsible for the trade of comics going into trade booming thanks to Death, right? They actually came out with the Dollhouse first, the second volume. They came out with that first, and it began with issue number 8 of Death. And then when they saw that this was selling, they backed up and they did number 1, Preludes and Nocturnes. And at the end of that trade, they did the first 8 issues, and you got the Death story again, The Beating of Her Wings. They reprinted it twice. And the trades were already around, but this is what really made them boom. And like I said, my mind wanders. I'd rather be reading this, reading that, and stuff, right? And out of all the stories of Sandman, out of the 75 issues, it's actually the last, what is this? It's these very issues that I've read the least. From Preludes and Nocturnes all the way up to the kindly ones. I've read those to death. But I've read very few of these over and over like I have the other ones, which is ironic because I'm just now putting this together. I think this is issue 70 to 75. But anyway, it's the first 4 issues of this. I think 3 or 4 issues of this are done by the amazing Mike Zulli, and it's called The Wake. Now, what a way to end a series about dreaming, right? Because I didn't really catch on to it at the first, right? But Morpheus has died, and now this is the wake for him before the funeral, right? Well, how do you end a dream? You wake up. I can't believe I didn't catch that back then, but I was a young man. I was a young man of 23 when this ended. I had followed this book off and on since 1988. I still had the first number, issue 6, I think it is, that I bought, Anyway, I was dying to buy this book since from the first advertisement I saw, right? So Mike Zulli was an artist and still is an artist, but his stuff was so tight and so good that they would take his pencils and put color right on it, no inking, right? And I believe that's what they've done here. So he does the 3-issue wake where we have a new dream, Daniel, a different aspect of dream. And he introduces him proper with Cain demanding that he bring back Abel because he had a contract with the previous Morpheus, a few aspect of dream and stuff right there, right? So it's everybody reminiscing, talking, we're catching up with characters and cast. This is where the series sort of relaxed a little bit, and by now, if you have followed the series, you're just going to see characters that you only know if you had followed the series. This is for the Sandman people. And it's all about Daniel meeting his family again for the first time, right? Great stuff. Well, let me slow down there. So, like I said, my mind wandered reading this newer stuff. This newer stuff is fantastic for letting me know what I need to read. So I got this, just to go over it. And then we have some Bob Hobgolding, the immortal, who was actually friends with Sandman. They would meet every year, every 100 years. Like I said, we're now in a part where you've read the Sandman. This is giving you the closure with each of these characters and stuff. And we get Death to pop up, talking to Hob, how he feels about his best friend for centuries, passing away. But anyway, and then we get this great story by, was it John J. Muth? We get one last story that's showing Neil Gaiman's artistic side, and they bring in the great artist. Oh my goodness. Yeah, John J. Muth, I had it right. He comes in with some of his classic inking style of inks, telling a story of the soft spaces and things in dreaming, and we get to see Morpheus. And that leads to Charles Vess's amazing artwork on issue 75 of The Tempest, where we get to have closure from issue 19 of The Midsummer's Night Dream, the Shakespeare subplot, if you will, going through here, where Sandman had hired Shakespeare to write 3 plays for him, and the last one is The Tempest. And Neil Gaiman really went to town, and I feel like that was the issue. We got our closure with The Wake and a few things. We got to see Morpheus one more time with John J. Muth, but then it felt like The Tempest and the story of Shakespeare and that play tying in with what he's doing here was Neil Gaiman, for Neil Gaiman writing a story for himself is what it felt like. And then, of course, it was brilliant. And I've already seen this, but yes, there we go. Shakespeare's ending was brilliant. Yes, it was. Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm like, I need to go back and read that again. I have 3 copies of it. Just a side story here. When that came out, I made sure to, I can't remember where I was working, but I worked it around to where I switched shifts with somebody. This is 1996. So I was probably working at a group home. I remember switching shifts with somebody so I could make sure I was at the comic book shop to get it when it came out on a Wednesday. And Charles Vess lives around here relatively, Abingdon, Virginia. It's been an hour now, about an hour from where I live now. At the time, it was less. But I made it to the Bristol shop that I talk about, Mountain Empire Comics. And the owner, Rob, is actually friends with Charles Vess, and Charles Vess had signed all the copies of Sandman number 75 for him. So when I bought it, it was already signed by Charles Vess, which I thought was very cool. And I always pick it out of dollar boxes. I cannot believe I find it in dollar boxes. And I got one more thing to show. It is Sandman related. It's not going to blow you away. Let me check these comments, and then we need to get on with our day, don't we? Sometimes I think Lovecraft influenced more comic creators than any other book writers today. I can see that. Zuli was fantastic. Yes. Yeah. I mean, now I'm glad I have it in trade. I can just enjoy the artwork. I have a handful of other books that he's done. What was it? Was it Puma Blues he did? I think I have some Puma Blues here. Sandman and reruns of Steve Reeves' Hercules on cable are what gave me an interest in Greek mythology in the early 90s. Absolutely. Absolutely. Steve Reeves. He was brilliant. And Dreams permeates Shakespearean stories, giving us a deeper understanding of human psychology centuries before Freud's interpretations of dreams. And this is what I'm getting about. Reading Neil Gaiman's Sandman stories is like revisiting an old friend. You know, I pick up those books and I'm back in the very year they came out. Those characters are living and breathing in my mind, right? It blows my mind the effect that it has on my brain when I read those books. And it's one of the last books I can think of where it's a very what's the word I'm looking for, interpersonal feeling. When you read Neil Gaiman's Sandman books, it is you in that book, and there's some kind of relationship being made there. So there's things that you get out of the books that are intangible. You can't really put into words. And what you've just said about Shakespearean plays and the interpretation of dreams and them permeating and stuff, Gaiman captured that also, I think. So perfect. Here we go. Yeah, Puma Blues and some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have some of each. I don't know about Puma Blues anymore, but I still have some of his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right here on the shelf there that he did. Nice. Okay, guys, and the last thing is not going to blow you away. I actually would have showed this earlier, but the book is so big, it's easier just to stack it on the bottom here, right? But my buddy Josh got this for Christmas for me. He came and visited me. He saw that I have number 3 and 4 of this series, the last 2 of the series. There's 4 of them. And I think these are fantastic, and I just take my time going through this issue by issue. I'm not reading it page by page. I'm kind of skipping around and stuff because some issues have more annotations than others, man. But this is volume 1 of Neil Gaiman's Sandman, the annotated Sandman. I've shown this before. This is the first 20 issues, and like I said, it's all 4 of these issues do the entire series in black and white. In these black sections here, we get trivia, annotations about where they come from and stuff, right? Oh, yeah, there we go. And like I said, some pages have more than others, some have none, but it's really cool to go through this and stuff, right? And I'm actually thinking about, I don't know. Next time I'm at Books A Million, I might see if they have it, but I'm actually thinking about getting the Hobbit annotated. I have the Watchmen annotated, 3 volumes of 4 of the Sandman annotated. I've had books that were annotated. I have American Gods by Neil Gaiman annotated. And there's a Hobbit, J.R.R. Tolkien Hobbit, I believe, that is annotated. I'm probably going to end up getting that. I'm really digging these annotated books. I mean, I've always liked the history. I've always liked trivia and stuff. But I think when you've read things over and over and over, it doesn't take much to really, when something actually nails it and it makes it fresh for you again, you learn a little bit of trivia. You can interpret the story a little bit better. It all depends your interest level, what you're into and stuff, right? But I'm really digging some of these really cool annotations that really enrich the story for you. Like, oh, that's why they did that. That makes more sense. That's very cool, right? Okay, so anyway, guys, that is it. You have lasted what, hour and a half with me. Um, if you want more videos like this where I actually review things that I read, if you want me to slow down a little bit, maybe take one book at a time, but I've enjoyed this. It was a little bit cathartic, and it's been nice to be able to actually catch up on some reading. And there could be a Gmart comic book haul coming up because a lot of books were late in 2023, going back to May. And a week after I got the last Gmart comic haul, some of the stuff you've seen there from this, I looked at it, and a week later, I had $70 more accumulated of books that were late going back to May. And it was things like trades, like Titan Books, Michael Moorcock Multiverse by Walt Simonson trade that they're coming out with, library edition, an EC comic edition, an EC trade, big stuff, right? Here and there, right? So there may be a Gmart haul, depending on what comes out a little bit later here pretty soon. I know in March, a couple of my buddies, we're all going to be meeting up to go to a comic book convention in, I can't remember if it's Charlotte, North Carolina or Concord. And then Heroes Con's coming up. It looks like if things work out and nothing crazy happens, maybe a whole weekend, renting a hotel out and everything of Heroes Con in, what is that, June? It's usually during Father's Day weekend and stuff, right? So there we go. So everybody take care. Oh, here we go. Agree. Deeply personal book. Personal. That is the word I needed. That's the magic to me of Sandman right there. It's interesting that other creators are allowed to play the Sandman sandbox, but I want to see Alan Moore or Grant Morrison take a trip to the Dreaming. Maybe I'll talk about this in the future. That's very cool because they actually. Grant Morrison, yeah, I'm not going to, I got to go. I'm like, I got to go. Thanks, man. Yeah, thank you too for watching, guys. Thank you. See you, Paulo. Great to see you. Yeah, Paulo, you ever want on? Give me a yell. If our time zones are different, which I'm just letting everybody else know. We need to pop you on here. And Eric Breen is here. Perfect timing. Catch us on the rewind there, Eric Breen. Now it's a show. All right, everybody be excellent to each other. Catch you later. Happy New Year, all that good stuff, right? And adios, amigo. That's the way to go out right there. Adios, amigos.